For decades, Toyota and Honda were pillars of the American automotive landscape, known for their legendary reliability and commitment to quality. These brands didn't just sell cars, they built trust and became household names across the country. Their deep investment in U.S. manufacturing was a testament to their long-term vision, creating a sense of stability for workers and communities alike. They built sprawling factories, created tens of thousands of well-paying jobs, and became woven into the very fabric of American industry, supporting local economies and shaping the future of manufacturing. But now, that once solid foundation is showing signs of strain and beginning to crack. A strategic pullback is underway. Plant closures, reduced investments, and a shrinking market presence are becoming more common. The main catalyst? Aggressive tariffs enacted during the Trump administration, which added billions to their costs and forced a painful reevaluation of their U.S. strategies. These policies changed the rules of the game almost overnight. Even with extensive American operations, the tariffs on imported parts and vehicles have made the market less attractive, squeezing profit margins and making it harder to compete. This script will explore the real reasons behind Toyota and Honda's retreat, focusing on the impact of tariffs, plant closures, and declining sales that have shaken their confidence in the U.S. market. We'll also consider other powerful forces, like the rapid shift to electric vehicles, which is transforming the industry landscape and demanding new investments, and supply chain disruptions, which have made it even more difficult for automakers to operate efficiently and meet consumer demand. Ultimately, this is a cautionary tale about the far-reaching consequences of protectionism and how quickly global dynamics can shift. It's also a signal of a potential realignment in the global auto industry, as companies rethink where and how they invest. By examining data and market trends, we'll uncover why these titans are reconsidering their American dream and what it means for the industry as a whole, and ultimately, what their retreat means for the future of U.S. manufacturing, American workers, and the communities that once thrived on the promise of the automotive dream. The escalation began in early 2025, as the world watched anxiously to see how the United States would reshape its approach to global trade. The Trump administration proposed steep new tariffs on foreign-made automobiles, sending shockwaves through the international business community and igniting fierce debate at home and abroad. The U.S. tariff on Japanese vehicles jumped from 2.5% to a threatened 27.5%, before settling at 15%, still 6 times higher than before, and a dramatic shift for the industry. This sudden increase fundamentally changed the cost structure for Japanese automakers, forcing them to reevaluate every aspect of their U.S. operations. Japan's prime minister called it a national crisis, highlighting the threat to Japan's vital auto industry and warning of ripple effects across the broader economy. Earlier tariffs on steel and aluminum had already raised costs for all automakers, including Toyota and Honda, squeezing profit margins and straining supplier relationships. The constant threat of new trade barriers made long-term planning nearly impossible, as executives scrambled to adjust forecasts and strategies. Even with U.S. factories, both companies rely on global supply chains, so the new tariffs added billions in annual expenses. The result? Reduced capital spending, delayed new models, and a growing sense of vulnerability. Japanese automakers began to reconsider their U.S. presence, weighing the risks of staying against the costs of leaving. The era of predictable low-tariff trade that fueled their American expansion is over, replaced by a climate of uncertainty and caution. Now, Toyota and Honda face a market where every decision is shaped by uncertainty and higher costs, with consumers and workers feeling the impact. Their retreat is not just a reaction, it's a necessity for survival, as they navigate a landscape transformed by protectionism. The rules of the game have changed, and Japanese automakers are being forced to adapt, rethinking their strategies for the future. The question is, at what cost to their American legacy, and what will the next chapter hold for these iconic brands? The financial strain from tariffs quickly led to real, tangible changes across the U.S. auto industry, forcing companies to make difficult decisions that would have seemed unthinkable just a few years earlier. Between 2023 and 2025, Toyota and Honda closed or idled 4 major U.S. plants, cornerstones of their American manufacturing network that had been built up over decades to serve local markets and create thousands of jobs. Investment in new U.S. facilities plummeted, with capital spending down 30% since 2018. Projects that once promised growth and innovation were shelved or canceled outright, Funds once earmarked for upgrades and new models were diverted to cover tariff costs or shifted to more stable markets overseas as companies scrambled to protect their bottom line. By mid-2025, both automakers had cut U.S. production by over 15% from their 2019 peak, resulting in fewer shifts, reduced overtime, and a noticeable slowdown on the assembly lines. Honda consolidated production, reducing shifts at key plants in Ohio and Indiana, and transferring some operations to other regions or even back to Japan. These moves weren't temporary, they were calculated long-term responses to a new economic reality that demanded caution and adaptability. Tariffs hit not just finished vehicles, but also the parts and components essential for U.S. assembly lines, raising costs across the board and disrupting carefully balanced supply chains. The contraction is a defensive maneuver, not a short-term fix. Automakers are bracing for a future where uncertainty is the only constant. The days of aggressive expansion are over. Cautious consolidation is the new norm, as companies focus on survival rather than growth. Toyota and Honda are fighting to stay competitive in a market that's become increasingly hostile to foreign investment, navigating new regulations and shifting consumer demand. Their retreat signals a fundamental shift in the U.S. auto landscape, marking the end of an era of rapid growth and the beginning of a more uncertain future. The ripple effects will be felt for years to come, impacting workers, suppliers, and entire communities that once depended on the auto industry's steady expansion. The pullback by Toyota and Honda isn't just a corporate story, it's a human one. Together, they employ over 55,000 workers across 18 plants in 13 states, anchoring local economies. Plant closures and production cuts have put thousands of jobs at risk, sending shockwaves through American towns. Analysts estimate a full shutdown could cost over 500,000 total jobs, including suppliers and local businesses. In places like Georgetown, Kentucky, where Toyota employs nearly a third of the local workforce, even a partial closure would be devastating. These plants are economic engines for entire regions. While Toyota is opening a new battery plant in North Carolina, this does little to offset the broader trend of job losses in traditional manufacturing. The shift to electrification is real, but it's not a one-for-one replacement for lost jobs. The social and economic fabric of many communities hangs in the balance. The retreat is clear in the numbers. Toyota's U.S. market share fell from 14.2% in 2019 to 11.8% in 2025, a loss of hundreds of thousands of sales. Honda's sales dropped from 1.6 million to 1.2 million vehicles, a 25% decline. These losses have been picked up by domestic automakers and foreign brands less affected by tariffs. Higher prices and fewer options have driven American consumers elsewhere. Tariffs forced Toyota and Honda to raise prices and delay new models, making them less competitive. The result: shrinking market share, falling sales, and a weakened position in the U.S. The numbers tell a story of brands under siege. Tariffs are only part of the story. The U.S. auto market is shifting rapidly, away from sedans toward SUVs, trucks, and especially electric vehicles. Toyota and Honda, slow to pivot, now find their lineups out of sync with consumer demand. Supply chain disruptions like the semiconductor shortage exposed vulnerabilities in their just-in-time manufacturing. Rising labor and material costs have squeezed margins even further. Regulatory uncertainty, fluctuating emissions standards, and state-level mandates complicates long-term planning. For global automakers, this patchwork of rules adds risk and complexity. The result: Toyota and Honda face a perfect storm of challenges, compounding the impact of tariffs. Their ability to adapt is being tested like never before. The U.S. pivot to electric vehicles has left Toyota and Honda scrambling. Their legacy of efficient gas engines and hybrids is no longer enough. Competitors like Tesla and Ford have surged ahead with all-electric models, while Toyota and Honda's EV offerings lag behind. Tariffs have drained resources needed for EV development, slowing their transition. Building a full EV ecosystem, batteries, assembly, supply chains, requires massive investment now under strain. The result is a vicious cycle: less profit from gas vehicles, less cash for EVs, and lost sales to faster-moving rivals. Toyota's new battery plant in North Carolina is a start, but far from enough. The challenge fund a costly technological pivot while their core business is under siege. Their future in America depends on how quickly they can catch up. The clock is ticking. The tariff shock has hit smaller Japanese automakers even harder. Mitsubishi, with no U.S. plants, faces unsustainable cost increases and may exit the market entirely. Subaru, despite a plant in Indiana, still relies on imports and has been forced to raise prices and cut entry-level models, risking its loyal customer base. Mazda is shifting production to its Alabama joint venture, but still faces tariff exposure on many models. For these companies, the US market has gone from a growth engine to a high-risk battleground. Only the largest, most localized automakers may survive. The era of easy access for Japanese brands is over. Consolidation pressure is mounting. The US is no longer a guaranteed path to success. For smaller players, survival is far from certain. The landscape is shifting, and not in their favor. The pullback of Toyota and Honda marks the end of an era in the US auto industry. Tariffs have forced plant closures, slashed investment, and triggered job losses, with ripple effects across the economy. Market share and sales have fallen sharply since 2019, as higher prices and delayed models made them less competitive. Smaller Japanese automakers face existential threats in a market that's become prohibitively expensive. But tariffs aren't the only challenge. Electrification and regulatory shifts have compounded the crisis. Toyota and Honda are caught between funding a costly EV transition and defending their legacy business. The result? A perfect storm threatening their long-term US presence. The decisions they make now will shape the future of global auto manufacturing and the livelihoods of thousands. Is this a temporary retreat, or the start of a permanent realignment? The answer will define the next chapter for Japanese automakers in America.